Thanks for returning. I want to continue the garden story because some really wonderful things evolved out of my planting this garden. And I did. I took this vision to heart, and I rented a tiller. I tilled up this area right off the side of my little cottage. I brought in a whole bunch of composted manure. I put a fence, a deer-proof fence around the garden with some help from a friend of mine who had a bobcat. And I started working this garden. And I would get out there in my shorts and a t-shirt, and I would just, with my bare hands, no gloves, I would work that composted manure into the soil and make my little mounds and do a little chopping up of some of the hard little spots. And I really worked the garden. I have never been a gardener, and I never liked getting my hands dirty, but I don't know, I was so free out there, and I whistled kind of through my teeth, you know, kind of like that, and I was whistling all the time, and I was just having all these wonderful fantasies were going through my head about what the garden was going to turn out to be, blah, 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 blah. Suddenly, this guy walks up to the fence, and he is a very nice-looking man, younger than me, probably by about 5 or 6 years, really well put together, nice clothes, expensive watch, very expensive shoes, very well put together, and looks like he really is somebody. And he walks up to the fence, and he said, "Are you Kim?" And I looked up, and I am filthy. And I looked up and I said, "Yeah." And you would be? And he said, "I'm Ned." Now, this isn't his real name. "I'm Ned, and I'm staying here with my daughter for the weekend." And I said, "Oh, Ned." I said, "Well, you've kind of caught me gardening here." And he said the funniest thing to me initially. He said, What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm planting a garden." And he said, "Why?" And I thought that was such a strange question. And initially I said, "Well, because I can." And I was just kind of joking with him. And then I thought to myself, am I going to tell him the truth? Or am I going to just shine him on and say, "Oh, I love gardening," and all this kind of stuff? Am I going to tell him that I was told to plant this garden in a vision? And I decided, Kim, you need to speak your truth. You need to walk your walk and speak your truth, not just to some people, but to all people. And just jump off that edge and do that. So I said to him, "Well, actually, the truth about it is that I had a vision, and I was told to plant a garden. So I am." And I said, "And I'm not a gardener, but I was told to plant this garden that miracles would occur. And so I'm planting this garden." I took my vision seriously. And he said, "You have visions?" And I said, "Yeah, all the time." And he said, Could we talk maybe over here at the picnic table?" So I said, "Sure." And I dusted myself off, and I went out my little gate, and I went over to sit with him at the picnic table. And really, I fully expected him to say, "You know, I think my daughter and I are going to find another place to stay," because I really thought I turned him off. But to my surprise, he says to me, "I used to have visions when I was a young man." And he said, "I had them regularly." He said, "I even had a vision where I walked alongside myself in another time, and I would talk, and I had the knowing that I was talking to myself from another time." But he said, "I didn't have the kind of support in my family that would support that, and I was groomed to be a corporate big shot." And I went into corporate work, and I became a big shot in the area of my area of expertise. But he said, "I've started having visions again." And he said, "The reason that I'm staying here this weekend is to get my act together so that I don't have to commit myself to a mental hospital." And I said, "What?" He said, "Well, I'm starting to have these visions again. And my friends tell me that it's just, you know, that I need to get away and get my act together. Otherwise, I need to get some help and commit myself to a mental hospital." And I said, "Why don't you just get a new set of friends?" And he said, "What? I can't do that. These are my friends." And I said, "I know, but why would your only choice be to commit yourself to a mental hospital because you're having visions? I said, just because they're not having visions doesn't mean that this isn't valid, that this isn't wonderful, you know. And I said, what are your visions telling you? And he said, well, I'm looking for a piece of land. I feel like I need to get out of corporate America and find a piece of land so that I can open up like an orphanage for kids that don't have homes, so that I can help kids that don't have parents and don't have homes, and I can be some sort of a parent figure. And I said, well, that sounds wonderful. He said, well, my friends think I'm nuts. And I said, well, I don't think you're nuts, but of course I'm having visions too. So we developed a friendship. And we stayed in touch for several years after this. He did not commit himself to a mental hospital. And even though I think that it was difficult for him to come to the realization that maybe he needed to change friends, I think he probably did a little bit at a time. Because as I explained to him, I said, you know, I've just found that when I speak my truth, that some of my friends fall away, but others come into my life that can really support me in what I'm doing and my path. And I believe that that's what he did. And we stayed friends for many years after that. I'm sorry to say that I've lost track of him currently. And I've Googled him and I just can't seem to find where he is. But I think this is a beautiful story and a beautiful illustration that when you're willing to jump off the edge, you open up so many possibilities. You don't have to stay in this little box, and you don't have to shine people on, and you don't have to speak untruths. If you have truths, especially divine truths, speak them, and speak them freely, because only good can come of that. So I encourage you to speak your truth, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for watching.